emergency evacuation order forced hundreds of Manatee County, Florida residents out of their homes over the Easter weekend. So what was the emergency? Well, apparently there was this imminent threat of toxic wastewater flooding their community. It all had to do with a man-made pond that included all of this wastewater, which was produced through creating fertilizer. Apparently that's big business in Florida. That's how the state makes some money. And CNN has some details about how disastrous this really is.
A toxic wastewater reservoir is on the brink of collapse. CNN's Bill Weir is live in Palmetto, Florida with more. What's the status, Bill?
Well, the status is people are very much on edge. They're a little calmer today than they were on Easter Sunday, worried that this man-made castle of radioactive waste that holds back this huge pond, really a small lake of this polluted water, could give way. It's already leaking. It's already beyond repair. The worst case scenario is that a 20-foot wall of water comes down through an area that has about 300 homes or so. These are the folks that have been evacuated. But this is a ticking time bomb problem in Florida. You got to understand, this state is the nation's leader when it comes to making phosphorus fertilizer. And in order to make this stuff and dig it up and mine it, every ton of fertilizer creates about 5 tons of this lightly radioactive toxic waste, phosphogypsum. And so they don't know what to do with this stuff. The EPA, states have never figured out a good way to get rid of it. So they just pile it in giant stacks. They are the highest points in Florida, these sort of 500-foot man-made mountains of this phosphorus gypsum.
Wow. No, but the story gets worse, guys. It really gets worse. So just to be specific, there are 316 households within the full evacuation area. There's also a prison within the evacuation area, and they have not moved all the prisoners. They've moved a few of them to make room for the upper levels of the prison. So if the flood happens, at least temporarily, they can prevent the prisoners from being flooded with just lightly radioactive toxic wastewater, as that CNN reporter mentioned. A portion of the containment wall at the leak site in Piney Point shifted laterally, signifying that the structural collapse could occur at any time. So what they did is they started pumping that toxic water out of that man-made pond, and they started pumping it into the Tampa Bay.
No.
Awesome. So when they started this process of creating this fertilizer, they realize that it leads to an insane amount of this toxic water. And they're like, we don't know what to do with it. And the EPA is like, we don't know how you can dispose of this safely. And they're like, we got it. We're gonna do the man-made lakes or man-made ponds, and we're gonna put it all in there and then basically ignore the structural integrity of these ponds, essentially putting this community at risk. And pumping the water in the Tampa Bay clearly has severe ramifications as well. It's been described as adding steroids to the red tide problem that Florida is already dealing with. And that is a problem that leads to marine life dying, dead fish washing up to the shore. I mean, it's just a complete and utter disaster. But hey, we gotta make money, right? So we'll deal with the toxic wastewater situation later. And one more thing, Francesca, this could really threaten the drinking water in the community. Although for now, the officials in the county are alleging that has not happened. So we'll see how this plays out, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
Oh, wow. Just very unsurprised that one of Florida's features is giant stacks of poo. That it sells. That just seems like it should be, comes with the territory of Florida. But no, people deserve to live not in an environmental wasteland. This is some Simpsons level Mr. Burns type stuff, right? Like this is how Spider Pig became Spider Pig in the Simpsons movie, Like Homer was driving away, like the whole thing, like it spewed evil, and it all stems from the fact that clearly the fertilizer is being used to ship all over the country, maybe even the world. So one, one, you're talking about like just the ways that we grow our food, the ways that the things that we're doing to the soil in order to have better crops, which seems like it'd be self-defeating if how you get there is creating an incredible amount of toxic waste and like, again, large piles of poo. And now this. And so it's, again, the short-sightedness. And I feel like this is all upsetting sort of environmentally and on terms of safety. And of course, prisoners are always the last people who are ever evacuated from emergency situations like this. But then on top of it, you realize that the people making money off of this stuff, I don't know which family, because I'm sure it's a family that makes lots of fertilizer money, but like, the Kochs made their money from doing the same thing. There are many different Mr. Burns, like dark money, like barons who make all their money from dumping toxic slime all over our communities and then refunnel the money into our political system. And yet, what do they do with the waste they create? They don't know. They pay a settlement maybe, like whatevs.
But also, I mean, it shows you how much of a joke the EPA really is. Not because I think that there should be a government agency that oversees and regulates and enforces laws to keep communities safe, to keep the environment safe. But my point is that the EPA is not even able to do that. It's been defanged clearly to the point where they're just like, yeah, I mean, sure, you can keep creating all of this lightly radioactive toxic wastewater. We just don't know how you're gonna safely dispose of it, but go forth, have fun. I mean, that part of the story really blew my mind. And Francesca, your head's in the right place because, every story that I've read about this fails to really mention the profit motive or maybe some corporate interest that could be at play. What I know for now is that HRK Holdings is the company that owns the site. And so I want to update you guys on this story as I learn more. I want to do more research on it and figure out, where things kind of fell apart and broke down. But clearly infrastructure matters. And when you're cutting costs to increase profits, you're going to deal with these catastrophic situations. And who ends up footing the bill? More often than not, it's usually the taxpayers. And I couldn't help but also think about the fact that, that myth of personal responsibility. If you're living in poverty or if you're struggling financially, you have no one to blame but yourself. That's the talking point that we've heard from people for decades now. People who want to maintain and protect the system of inequality that we're experiencing. But let's say they're unable to pump out enough water to prevent the toxic waste from flooding the community. So whose responsibility is that? Is it the responsibility of the homeowners who did their due diligence, worked really hard and purchased those homes and live in that community? Is it their fault? Are they not taking enough personal responsibility? And that's what's leading to this potential catastrophic incident? I mean, it just shows you. I mean, there's so many things that are out of the control of ordinary Americans. Yes. And I hope that everything works out for this community. I feel awful for them, but this is a dire situation. If the water floods the community, it will contaminate their drinking water. It will destroy their homes. And don't believe anyone who tells you no, I mean, yeah, it's lightly radioactive, but don't worry, you'll be okay, you'll be safe. F off. We all know the truth. We know that it's not safe. Lightly radioactive is a cute little, I guess, half euphemism. I don't know. But the situation is dire. And just to give you a few more details. So at a press conference, DeSantis said that officials are pumping out 33 million gallons of water a day from the pond. Ooh. And that the water is not radioactive. He claims it's not radioactive. He's lying to you. It is. Although another official added that the water is not water we want to see leaving the site. Oh, thank you for that. Even after days of pumping water out of this reservoir, there are still roughly 3,450 million gallons of wastewater that could suddenly be unleashed. So this is bad, and unsurprisingly, this wastewater reservoir already had leaks and all sorts of problems. Apparently, they didn't do enough repairs to prevent what that community is experiencing right now. So, yeah. Feel awful for them, but this is how the system works, guys. Cut those costs, increase those profits.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of if you care about capitalism and private property, no, you don't. You pass the buck down to the little people, i.e., just people who aren't, fertilizer companies, and it's their problem. It's totally fine. You claim to love the consumer. Consumer, no, you don't. No, because exactly, you're just passing the problem on to them. But look, I feel like there's a through line in this show today, Anna, because we started talking about Godzilla, and now we're ending with a radioactive pond. And I feel like this is how Godzillas get made. And there are gonna be some really angry crocodiles or giant lizards. I'm scared.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.